So yesterday we talked about adding fractions, and today we're going to talk about adding negative fractions because yesterday we were only working on positive fractions. So we're going to learn how to combine, and I talked to yesterday about combine means adding or subtracting. Because once we're working with rational numbers, they can be negative or positive. So let's go over adding positives first, just to remind ourselves how we do this. So let's say we have 2 6 plus 5 6. The first thing we always check is, are the denominators the same? The denominators are the same, so we're just going to bring it straight over. And remember, we talked about yesterday that this means that if you had a model, your model has 6 pieces in it. So your model would only have 6 pieces in it. You're not going to have, you got to fill up this one model before you can start another one. So it's like I told you, Kiefer, we went to Applebee's and I told him he had to finish his good food before he ate dessert. Well, it's the same thing with your models. You need to finish a whole model before you move on to another one. So if I had 2 6, I would fill in 2. And then I would need to fill in 5 more. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I don't have more, so I would have to draw another model. And this model would also have to have 6 to make it work. So I had 1, 2, and then I filled in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So my answer here is going to be 1 and 1/6. Let's see what we get with numbers. So 2 plus 5 is 7. Well, we know that we cannot leave this as an improper fraction. So really this says 7. It says 7/6, and it also says 7 out of 6. But it also says 7 divided by 6. So I'm going to come over here and do 7 divided by 6. 6 will go into 7 one time. 1 times 6 is 6. Subtract, and I have 1. 1 is less than 6, so I know that this is my remainder, but I no longer write it as remainder 1. I write it as 1/6. So does 7/6 equal 1 and 1/6? Yes, it does. And our model also shows that it is 1 and 1/6. Let's do one without the same denominator. So if I had 3/4 and I wanted to add 1/2. I couldn't do this. I couldn't do a model with 4 for fourths and a model with only 2 pieces and be able to know what my answer is. So I can't do that. I have to have a common denominator so I can model it accurately. Now, I know that 2 times 2 is 4, so I could have the common denominator of 4. So I would do that like 2 times 2. Whatever you do to the bottom, you also do to the top. And we talked yesterday about using that dot because when we use the x, when we start solving equations and we have variables, that x gets quite confusing. So we started using a dot to represent multiplication. So now I do nothing with this number. It just comes straight down. 3/4 plus 1 times 2 is 2, and 2 times 2 is 4. Now I can add these together. So my denominators are the same, so I bring my 4 over, and then I just add the numerators, and 3 plus 2 is 5. Now, I know that this is improper because I can't leave my bigger number on top. So I have to divide 5 by 4 because this also says 5 divided by 4. So that will go in one time. 1 times 4 is 4. I subtract that and I get 1. 1 is less than 4, so that means it's my remainder, but I'm not going to write remainder 1. I'm going to write 1 over 4. So my answer is 1 and 1/4. Let's see how we would do that on a model. So my models have 4 pieces. And remember, you have to do one model. You have to fill it up first before you can move on to your second model. So let's see if we'll even need a second model. So we have 3/4, so I will color in 3 out of the 4. And then I need to color in 2/4. Well, I don't have 2 spaces, so I do need another model, and it will also be a model that has 4 pieces. They have to be equal for us to be able to add them. So I've already got 3/4, and now I need to add 2/4. But remember, we have to fill this one up first before we can move on to the next one. So now my answer here is 1 whole model and 1/4 of the second model, which is exactly what we got here, so we know our answer is correct. I just wanted to show you models again. I know you did them in 4th grade because when I taught 4th grade, I taught adding fractions with like denominators in 4th grade, and we did it with models. So I wanted to remind you of why you have to have that common denominator. You have to have matching models in order to get the right answer. So now that we've talked about that, now let's talk about rational numbers. Rational numbers can be positive or negative. So we're going to work them the same way we worked those integers, and we're using the same rules that we used with integers. So let's say we have positive 2/3 plus negative 1/3. Now, just like with integers, you check, is it addition? It is, so that means all I'm going to do is check my signs. So I'm going to check my signs. I have a positive and I have a negative. So that means my signs are different, so I'm going to subtract. Now, I have fractions now, so I have to check, are my denominators the same? They are. So that means I can subtract as usual. So my denominators are the same, so that means I'm going to bring this 3 right over. And then I'm going to say 2 minus 1 is 1. And again, keep the sign of your largest absolute value, which is 2/3, which means my answer is going to be positive. Don't forget to use those rules, and don't forget to make sure your denominators are the same. Let's try another one. This time, let's do 7/8. Let's make it negative 7/8 plus negative 3/8. I see that I have fractions, so I'm going to check my denominator. My denominators are the same, which means I can bring my denominator straight over. Now, I notice that I have negative fractions. So first thing I'm going to check is it plus? It is, so that means I'm going to check my signs. My signs are the same. Same means sum, which means I need to add my numerators. 7 plus 3 is 10. And I'm going to keep the sign of the largest absolute value, which is 7/8. And it's negative, so my answer is negative. Now I notice that I cannot keep this like this because it's improper. So I have negative 10 divided by 8. So I'm just going to do 10 divided by 8. 8 times 1 is 8. I subtract and I get 2. 2 is less than 8, so that means it's my remainder, and I'm going to write it as 2 over 8. Now, I know that 2/8 I can divide the top and bottom by 2 because they're both even. Bring my whole number over. 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. And so I bring it over here. 1 and 1/4. And don't forget, it's negative, so your answer is still negative. It's a lot of rules, and you've got to put them all together. 7th grade is a lot about applying what you know and not just learning how to do the math. You have to be able to apply it and use all those rules together. Let's try another one. Let's say we have 5/10, let's make it negative, plus positive 4/10. So negative 5/10 plus positive 4/10. So I see that I have fractions. So the first thing I'm going to check is my denominators, I'm sorry, not is, are my denominators the same? They are, so I'm just going to bring them straight over. Now, I see I have negative numbers here, so I need to check, is it addition? It is, so I'm going to check my signs. One is negative and one is positive. My signs are different, which means I'm going to subtract. 5 minus 4 is 1. And you keep the sign of the largest absolute value, which is negative. So my answer here is negative 1/10. I think those are pretty simple as long as you're remembering every rule you need. Check the denominators, check if it's adding, check your signs, then follow the rules. Let's try one with unlike denominators. So let's say we have negative 2/3 plus negative 2/6. I see I have fractions, so the first thing I'm going to check is, are my denominators the same? They aren't, so I need to convert it first. So I know that 3 times 2 is 6, and whatever I do to the top, the bottom, I have to do to the top. So I have 2 times 2 is 4, and 2 times 3 is 6, and don't forget this negative sign. Then I just bring the rest down, negative 2/6. Now, I have negative numbers, which means that I need to be adding to follow my rules. Am I adding? Sure, I am adding. So now I'm going to check my signs. My signs are the same, which means I'm going to add. 4 plus 2 is 6, and my denominators are the same, so it just comes right over. And you keep the sign of the largest absolute value, which is negative. This is negative 6/6, which means that I need to simplify, and I know that 6/6 is the same thing as 1 whole. So it's equal to negative 1. Don't forget your negative sign. Let's do a few more. Let's say we have positive 6/12 plus positive 5/6. First thing I check, it's fractions, so I'm going to check, do I have the same denominator? I don't. So I need to find a common denominator. I know that 6 times 2 is 12, so I'm going to go with that. 6 times 2 is 12. Whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. So I have 5 times 2 is 10, and 6 times 2 is 12, and my sign is positive. That comes with it. Now I'm going to bring down the rest of my problem. I don't do anything to this one because it is already positive 6/12. Now, do I have the same denominator now? I do, so I can bring it over. And I notice that it is adding, so that means I can follow my rules. Check your signs. Signs are the same, so that means I'm going to add. 6 plus 10 is 16, and keep the sign of the largest absolute value, which is positive. I see that this is an improper fraction, so that means that I have to divide. So 16 divided by 12. 12 will go into 16 one time. 1 times 12 is 12. Subtract and you get 4. 4 is smaller than 12, so that means it's my remainder, and I'm going to write it as 4/12. I know that 4/12 can be reduced by 4. So reduce top and bottom by 4. Bring your whole number over. 4 divided by 4 is 1, and 12 divided by 4 is 3, and my sign was positive, so my sign stays positive. So positive 1 1/3 is your final answer. Let's try another one. This time let's do 7/8. Let's make it negative. Negative 7/8 minus negative 4/12. First thing I see is I have fractions and I do not have the same denominator. So I need to think of what is a good denominator between 8 and 12. I know that 8 times 3 is 24 and 12 times 2 is 24. So I'm going to use the common denominator of 24. So 8 times 3, and whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. 3 times 7 is 21. 3 times 8 is 24, and I keep my sign, it's negative. Bring this subtraction sign down. Now I need to convert this one. So 12 times 2 is 24. Whatever I do to the bottom, I do to the top. So 4 times 2 is 8. 12 times 2 is 24. Don't forget your sign. Now, I do have the same denominator, so I can bring it straight over. The first thing I'm going to notice is this is not adding, so I have to change it to adding by doing the opposite. I do absolutely nothing to the first number other than just bring it down. Now I have to change the subtraction sign to an addition, and this is a negative sign, so it changes to a positive 8/24. Now I'm adding now, so all I need to do is check my signs. They are different. Different means subtract. So let's see what we get. I can bring 24 straight over, and I don't know what 21 minus 8 is off the top of my head, so I'm going to do it like this. 11 minus 8 is 3. Bring down your 1, so it is 13/24. Keep the sign of your largest number, largest absolute value, which is negative, and my answer is negative 13/24. It's a lot of steps, but if you'll just follow your steps and follow your rules, you're going to be fine. Okay, I'm going to let it go on that, and I'm going to give you some practice problems. Good luck, and bye-bye.